Donald Trump's big bill is bigly unpopular. Today, new polling from the Washington Post and Ipsos shows that Americans oppose the plan 2-1. It turns out cutting taxes for the very wealthy and for big corporations while cutting health care for everyone else is not very popular. And if you were hoping the Senate would moderate the worst impulses of the House Republican caucus, I got some bad news. As it turns out, the Senate version of the bill cuts more from Medicaid, imposing even stricter work requirements than the House bill. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's a Democrat of Texas. She's running to serve as ranking member of the Oversight Committee, and she joins me now. Good to have you here.
Good to see you.
Let's start with the polling because it strikes me as both sort of encouraging for those opponents of the bill, also a huge messaging opportunity because a third of people don't have an opinion of it. So you've got 23 support, 42% oppose, 34% no opinion. What does that say to you?
Yeah, it says that we still have a lot of work to do as it relates to kind of getting the message out. I do appreciate the fact that we've had some time, which is something that we didn't have when we went through the continuing resolution fight that we had, where you know who sent out a tweet and all of a sudden a bill went kaput. And so I do appreciate that we're kind of getting through it, but you're talking about pages and pages of legislation. And then you have, you know, the Trump administration throwing things out like, oh, we're not going to put a tax on this, so you should love it. But they're not telling the other side of the story. Like at the end of the day, would you rather have a tax bill that may be $5, you know, less that you're normally keeping in your pockets, but you don't have this crazy random healthcare bill?
Right.
Probably so, right? Like, and the reality is that people are going to die. You know, listening to the stories of people that literally have only been able to live because of Medicaid, it's heartbreaking. And the fact that we're talking about rich people just keeping more money in their pockets while literally other people are going to die, it sounds anti-American and definitely sounds anti-patriotic.
So one of the things that generally when I've covered big bills in domestic policy in D.C., you know, there's this idea of like the Senate is like the cooling saucer and that, you know, and that usually things come back from the Senate like more moderate, but both on the left and the right. That is generally the way things go. It seems to me like Ron Johnson and the sort of right-wing faction in the Senate is actually pushing to make this bill more aggressive on the cuts side. And I'm wondering if you were anticipating that or if you thought you were expecting a more moderate bill.
No, I was expecting the Senate to fix everything. I mean, I was expecting it still to come back as a bad bill, but we're talking about
You thought it would get better.
Correct. I thought it would get better. We're talking about a bill that only made it through the House by one vote.
Right.
One vote. So literally it's like two people went AWOL, right? And another two Republicans voted with the Dems. And then another one just said, listen, I'm just going to white light this or, you know, vote present. Yeah. And so I expected in the Senate, especially because think about it this way. Our congressional districts are approximately 766,000 people. And so literally there are some Republicans that don't have any hospitals whatsoever in their districts. But then you start talking about the Senate, every single state senator has hospitals. And when you start to talk about rural hospitals possibly shutting down because they don't have enough funding because you're now cutting this Medicaid funding and they can't supplement because they don't have all these other people coming in with, say, private insurance, I thought the senators would say, listen, we can't do this.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because one of the things, my understanding, again, the details here get a little complicated, but there's this mechanism called the provider tax, which actually would hurt hospitals. Let's sort of do the short version that way. They're trying to squeeze more revenue. My feeling always when I used to cover Congress day in, day out was that the hospitals were big interest groups.
They are.
They will drop money on your head if they don't like it. They will be up in your office. Where are the hospitals? Honestly, it's wild to me that they have not shown up in a big way.
I don't know.
To fight this bill.
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of like you saw the farmers, right? Like when we were going through that, like continuing resolution, the farmers were like, wait a minute. Like they showed up, like the Farm Bureau was like, we are here, right? And so it is odd because the hospital lobby is a really big lobby. And a lot of people probably think of lobbies and they think, oh, you're going to be the antithesis of me. But when you're talking about rural America, like I lived in East Texas, let me tell you, hospitals are shutting down. And in rural America, you don't have as many providers either. And so literally, if you have this specialized cancer, you can't stay at home. You've got to go somewhere else because there's no one that knows about the help that you need. So it is really odd. And I tell you this, that there's going to be more hurt that comes to red states than blue states. Blue states can actually take in a lot of this, not to say that they should and not to say that it's right, but like it will be
You think disproportionately red states will get hurt by the Medicaid cuts in both these versions of the bill?
Yes, absolutely.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who is from the state of Texas, thanks so much for your time.